So I'm Mrs. Airy, I'm the College and Career Coordinator, and you find me in the hub in College and Career Services, and that's where your students can come and check out any post-high school planning options and get their questions answered, etc. I just wanted to take a moment to highlight a couple of the individuals who work in College and Career Services and the services that we do provide. Again, being that this is an all-grade level event, I'm going to just highlight some of the programs that we put on for students, and then again, the people who serve your students and yourselves. So for freshman and sophomore families, we will have an event coming up this fall. You can find it on the calendar. It is the Early Awareness College Planning Program. For junior families, we will have a junior presentation in January that will be about the college search process, and then we do those every year. So we already had our junior navigating junior year event and our senior application night. So those are a couple of the events that are coming up. Again, for younger families, we'll have the Pathways to AP Forum as well as the Engineering Showcase Night, and those come up this fall later in December, I believe. So that's just some of the evening programming that we facilitate, but please know that there are programs going on throughout the day that your student has access to, so please encourage your student to be checking email and taking advantage of those opportunities that do exist for college and career. I wanted to note that we also have Mrs. Vasquez here tonight. She is in the Spanish presentation. She is also a school counselor who works in College and Career Services and assists students with their plans for after high school. She focuses on Oakton Community College, the military, and careers. And then we have the opportunity to have our support specialist, who is Ms. Cooper. So if you've called our office, you have interacted with Ms. Cooper, you may have checked in with her tonight. So she is here sort of our first line of questions and service to all of you. We have Ms. Daisy Flores, who's from Oakton Community College, and she is here on Mondays to help students and families navigate the Oakton Community College process. We have Ms. Duana Frazier, who works at the Youth Job Center, and she's a career advisor, and she's in the office every day. On Thursdays, we have our college-bound student athlete advisor. So if any of you have students who are considering pursuing collegiate athletics, we have an individual that works with us and you and your students on their eligibility and recruitment into collegiate athletics. And so I saved the best for last, which occupies our Fridays in College and Career Services, and we are very lucky to have Miss Serena Robertson back to us this year, as she is very experienced with our community and our families. She's going to go over how you can reach her. She's going to give us our presentation this evening on an intro to financial aid, and then you'll be able to connect with her briefly afterward, but also you have her card if you grabbed it outside, but the information to contact her is also on the College and Career Services website, as is all the contact information for the people that I mentioned and a request for appointment link, so you can have your student engage with us in that way as well. So what you've all been waiting for, the big introduction to financial aid, so please welcome Serena Robertson.
Hello, I hope everyone is doing well tonight. Thank you for coming. Like Ms. Airy stated before, my name is Serena Robertson. I am here from 8 a.m. to 4 p.m. on Fridays. I'm here for some Saturdays for Wildcat Academy, and I also live very close in Rogers Park. So if you're ever not able to find a time to meet with me, you can shoot me an email or a text, or call me if you would like, and we can set up a meeting somewhere in the community. So tonight I'm going to go over the entire financial aid process. Just a little bit about where I work. So I work for the Illinois Student Assistance Commission, otherwise known as ISAC. Basically, our job is to help make college affordable and accessible for all students within the state of Illinois. Whether that be ESL students, undocumented students, students from low-income families, traditional students, students with disabilities, Whatever student, we're just here to help and serve. So first I want to go over college. Many times when people think of the word college, they assume just a four-year institution, but it really could be any post-secondary option. One that we're going to talk about first is community colleges, where you would go to obtain an associate's degree. The nearest community college to us now is Oakton Community College. No matter what your major is, every student has to complete general education requirements. So sometimes it can save you a lot of money to go to a community college first, finish your general education requirements, and then transfer to a four-year to complete your major courses. Another one is going to be trade school, where you go to focus on a specific trade, whether it be construction management, whether it be welding, landscaping, anything pretty much hands-on. So usually with trade schools, you would go there, attend. It usually takes about 2 years for you to receive your certificate. And depending on which trade program you're in, they usually will set you up with a job after. So just keep in mind that is also an option. The most common is a four-year institution where you would go to obtain a bachelor's degree. And if you wanted to obtain your master's or your doctorate, just keep in mind that it could take, for a master's specifically, 1 to 3 years after you have obtained your master's degree. So planning for college, no matter what the income is in the household, most people, when it comes to college, their main issue is how are we going to pay for this, and how are we going to pay for this without having a lot of debt afterwards. So we're going to talk about that today. We're going to talk about the FAFSA application and the entire financial aid process. And just remember that I am here for you until the end. So if you ever need any type of help or assistance, or anyone to go over things with you one-on-one, you can just set up a meeting with me. Okay, so the first is, what is financial aid? So financial aid is broken up into 3 different groups. The first one that I'm going to talk about is borrowed money. This is money that you're borrowing, but you usually do have to pay that money back plus interest accrued. Given money, on the other hand, is going to be given money, you don't have to pay it back. That's going to usually be things like grants and scholarships, which we'll talk about a little bit more. And then earned money is going to be a federal work study, and we're going to talk about that as well. So types of financial aid. So we're going to talk about gift aid, which will either be grants. Grants are usually need-based, so they're looking at how much money is coming into the household, how many students are in college who live within that household. And scholarships, on the other hand, is usually merit-based. Most people believe that scholarships have everything to do with your grades, but that's not necessarily true. You could receive a scholarship for artistic talent, athletic ability, academic achievement. So just keep those types of things in mind, especially for the seniors who are in here. When you're completing your college applications and it's asking you what extracurricular activities you have been a part of, or volunteer work or clubs, make sure that you include that information on those college applications. Okay, so self-help aid is going to be more so like loans, and we'll definitely go more in depth into loans, so don't worry about that. And work study, which we're going to talk about now. So just keep in mind that work study is a need-based employment program through the institution. The job could either be on campus or off campus, but it is through the school. Seniors, when you all are completing your FAFSA application, it will have a question on there that says, would you like to be considered for work study? Whether or not you believe that you'll use it, I would still check that box. It will never hurt you. Just keep in mind, when it comes to work study, the initial application is checking that box on the FAFSA application, but in order for you to actually get a job, you have to go through the financial aid office, see what is available, apply, go through an interview process. So keep those types of things in mind. But the 2 greatest benefits as far as work study, number 1 is that any money that the student makes from work study is not considered income. So when you are completing the FAFSA, and they're asking for parental financial information as well as student financial information. Any money that that student has made from federal work study will not be included, okay? The other benefit of federal work study is that they know that you're in school. School is your first priority, so they are giving you the time off for midterms and finals. I remember when I was an undergrad, unfortunately, I did not do work study, which was a hassle when it came to prioritizing my school work. So it's definitely beneficial to do work study if you can. Also, financial aid comes from a variety of sources. You always want to know, where is your financial aid coming from? So how many of us have heard of the Pell or MAP grant before? Oh, that's a lot. That's wonderful. So just so you know, the Pell Grant comes from the federal government. That's why you are able to use the Pell Grant within any state in the USA. The MAP grant, on the other hand, comes from the state government. So you are only able to use the MAP grant at Illinois MAP-approved schools, okay? When you all are completing your college applications, many times, especially for freshman students, they will usually have some type of combination of scholarship application and college application. They're looking for like a specific GPA or a specific sport or whatever the case may be, and they will usually offer you some type of scholarship or grant. So just keep that in mind when it comes to institutional aid. That's going to be anything that you're receiving from the school. Outside private sources is if students were to find some type of scholarship or grant on like Going Merry, on like College Greenlight, FastWeb, any of those type of scholarship places. So we're going to talk a little bit about grants. So the most important thing for you all to remember is that it's 4 different components to the FAFSA application. That's why it's so important to complete it. The FAFSA application is the same application for the MAP grant, the Pell grant, the initial application for work study, and the application for federal loans. So it's a lot that's wrapped up into that one application. But the first one we're going to talk about is the MAP grant. We talked about it a little bit before. Just remember that you can only use this grant within the state of Illinois. Okay, it is need-based. It's also first come, first serve, and you can receive up to $5,340. The Pell Grant, on the other hand, is also need-based, first come, first serve, and you can use this within any state in the USA. Okay, that's up to $6,195, but again, it does depend on need. But let's say that you were to complete the FAFSA application in a timely manner. You do have high need. If you were able to receive both of these, it would be $11,535 that you do not have to pay back. So that's why it is super important to complete the FAFSA application if you can. Another thing that we're going to talk about is some of the state grant programs. So we talked about MAP before, but specifically the Illinois Veteran Grant and the Illinois National Guard Grant. Remember, the applications for these are on the ISAC website, isac.org. But the most important thing to remember about these is that they cover tuition and mandatory fees at public institutions or community colleges. Now, if you all have visited some of the community colleges or public institutions within the state of Illinois, if you usually look close to the financial office, you will notice it'll say something like Veterans Affairs. It is usually always some type of representative there who can literally help you through the entire process. If any students in here are looking to take advantage of some of the military grants, please see me after so that I can give you the point of contact who can help you through the entire application process. Another one is definitely grants for dependents of police, fire, and correctional officers. So just keep in mind that you are eligible if you are the spouse or the child of an officer who unfortunately passed away or was permanently disabled while serving on active duty, and you have to be a resident of the state of Illinois and at least enrolled in school at least half time. Okay? definitely, I don't know if it's anyone planning on going into education in the room, but we do have, through the state of Illinois, some grants and scholarships that you would be eligible to apply for. If you meet the criteria. One is the Minority Teacher of Illinois Scholarship, and another one is the Special Education Teacher Tuition Waiver. Now, if you see me after, if this is you, if you feel like this applies to you, I have a really wonderful sheet that literally compares all of the teacher grants from the state as well as the federal government, so that you don't have to go through so many different search engines to see if it fits you. Okay, just keep in mind that when it comes to the scholarship as well as this tuition waiver, that there is a teaching commitment after you graduate from school. So if for any reason, let's say that you're a junior in college and you decide to change your major from education to something else, or let's say that you graduated and you're teaching for a few months or a year and then you're like, I don't want to teach anymore, that scholarship will become a loan. So just keep that in mind. We're going to talk about some of the federal grants now that we have to offer. We talked about the Pell Grant before. Just remember, in order to apply for the Pell Grant, you do have to complete the FAFSA application. Specifically for young men who are in the room who are seniors, just keep in mind that when you are completing the FAFSA application, it's going to ask a question, and it says, are you registered for selective service? If you are not, please say no, but register me. Just keep in mind for young men that in order to receive financial aid, you have to be registered for selective service, okay? If you are not registered for selective service, you usually, they will not disperse financial aid to you, okay? Another one that we're going to talk about is the Iraq and Afghanistan Service Grant. So if your parent or guardian passed away, unfortunately, due to war in Iraq or Afghanistan post 9/11, you may be eligible to receive this award. It's up to $5,829. But if you did have more questions about that, please see me after. And if you don't have a lot of time, I don't know if some of you may have to go to work after this, please shoot me an email or a text or a call, leave me a voicemail so that I can get back to you. Definitely, we're going to talk about campus-based programs. We talked about it before as far as federal work study. That's a need-based, campus-based program. But for the Federal Supplemental Education Opportunity Grant, just keep in mind that the school, basically what they do, and we'll talk about this a little bit more, but they will look for the students with the lowest EFC. EFC stands for Expected Family Contribution. So the families who cannot afford to contribute a lot to their child's education, they will take a pool of those students within their institution, and basically they will disperse money from the FSEOG grant to those students. It could be $100,000 to $4,000, but honestly, it just depends on how many students have need within their school, how many students have the lowest EFC. Okay, also we're going to talk about loan programs, which I think is like the most intimidating part for both students and parents. When evaluating loan options, you just want to consider the following. Firstly, what is the source of the loan? Are you getting it from like some type of private entity, or are you getting the loan from the federal government? That's super important to know. You also want to know a little bit about interest rates. Right now, the government has a fixed interest rate of 4.53%. So if you feel like, I would never suggest, but if you feel like you will have to take out a private loan, please do compare that to a federal loan with that fixed 4.53%. I know for some loans, the interest rate can be variable, which means that it could possibly fluctuate. So you want to definitely be careful of that. You also want to know about the repayment options. If you are taking out like some type of private loan, are they expecting you to pay the money back right away or within a year or after you graduate? You want to know things like that. I know specifically for federal loans, students have a 6-month grace period. So that means that as a student, you have 6 months after you have dropped below half-time status, or you have graduated from school and aren't going back into school, to start making payments on your federal loans. So just keep that in mind. Right now, they do have about 6 different repayment options, so it's usually easier to find something that can work for you. We're going to talk about subsidized versus unsubsidized on the next slide, so I'm just going to go straight to that. Just keep in mind that subsidized loans are need-based. The interest, the government will pay the interest as long as the student is enrolled in school at least half time, okay? If the student drops below that, then the government does not pay the interest on that. As far as direct unsubsidized loans, those loans are not need-based, and the student is responsible for both the loan amount and the interest accrued. So these are some of the different loans that they have available. For parents, I would say, because we went over most of this, the 4.53% fixed interest rate, you have 6 months as students before you have to start making payments. But for parents, this is the most important part for you. Just keep in mind that some schools may ask you to apply for a Parent Plus loan. If you do apply for the Parent Plus loan and you are approved, you don't have to take out that money, but for some reason, if you do wish to take the money out, just keep in mind that you are responsible for that loan and you are responsible for the interest accrued. That loan is not transferable to the student, even though it's for the student. So just keep that in mind. Sometimes the school will ask you to apply, even if they know you're going to get denied, because what many schools will do, if the parent is denied the Parent Plus loan, basically they will increase the student loan at an independent student rate. And we're going to talk about that more in the next slide. So as you can see, it's 2 separate columns here, one for dependent student, one for independent. Just keep in mind that dependent students, you're depending on your parents, of course, but for independent students, I'm going to use myself as an example. I really believed that I was independent because I was paying rent and car note and all types of stuff, and I didn't, of course, live with my parents, but no, that is not the case, okay? Unless you are age 24 or older, you have a child and you're providing more than 50% need for that child, unless you're part of the U.S. Armed Forces or you're a ward of the court, or you were somehow, in foster care at age 13 or older. Unless you fit pretty much any of those, then you would be considered an independent student, or unless you are homeless. And if you wanted to talk about that a little bit more, please email me, or you can just come by my office. I'm here all day Fridays, like we discussed before, and some Wild Kids Saturdays, so we could talk about that. But as you all can see, each year that you're in school, basically they will increase your loan amount. The only thing that can affect this for students specifically is your academic status. So make sure that you are doing well in college. It is an investment, so you want to do well. And then for parents, like I talked about before, if you are denied the Parent Plus loan, usually what most schools will do is they will increase the loan amount for students from the dependent rate to independent. So if it's the student's first year, instead of them getting $5,500 in loans, they will get the $9,500 in loans, just as an example. So how to apply for financial aid? You're going to go to FAFSA.gov, but no worries, because Evanston does a wonderful job at preparing things for you all. So they're going to prepare a nice packet. It'll be through your email, which tells you everything that you need as far as completing the FAFSA application. And we will have a FAFSA workshop date here on October 3rd, I believe. But just keep in mind that the FAFSA application, yes, you should definitely do that, but also sometimes the institution will have documents that they're asking you to complete. If it's a reason that you're not understanding why they're asking you, or you don't know what it is, please come and see me so that we can talk about it, or I can help you prepare those documents. The most important thing to know is that for the overachievers in the room, do not give the school anything that they do not ask for, because it can definitely hurt you. Only provide them with what they're asking for. Okay, so this is kind of how the website looks, just so you can have a little, snapshot of this. But don't worry, because I believe that you all are going to receive this via email. But this is the FAFSA.gov. This is the first thing that's going to pop up. So when does the FAFSA application open? It opens October 1st at midnight. Unfortunately, we can't get in and try to, work on the application beforehand. So we just have to wait until then. This is probably the best time for you all to start preparing documents. So most of you have that little green postcard. It will tell you everything that you need in order to complete the FAFSA. So if you could start preparing those now, that will be great, so that we can, just send the application in once it's available. Okay? Just remember, who is completing this application is going to be high school seniors or anyone who plans to attend college. So if they're a freshman or a sophomore in college right now and they plan on continuing to the next year, they will be completing the FAFSA application. Remember, the website is www.fafsa.gov. And why? Because it determines your eligibility for federal and state aid. Also keep in mind, because I know I had a few questions last year of, should I really complete the FAFSA because I don't think I'm going to get anything, just because the grants specifically are need-based. It is still important for you to complete the FAFSA, and the reason why is because the schools will usually look at that. Like, for instance, let's say that you don't feel like you're going to get absolutely anything, but when you don't complete the FAFSA, it's almost telling the school, I don't need anything from anyone because I have the money. Okay, so that's why it's important to complete, because you never know what institutional aid you might receive. And usually before the school disperse any institutional aid, they are asking to see that FAFSA application first, okay? Parent information. So like we talked about a little bit before when we talked about independent students, most students have to report parental information unless they are considered an independent student, okay? For purposes of the FAFSA, the only parents that can complete the FAFSA application are biological parents, adoptive parents, or step parents, only if they are married to the biological parent. If it is a situation where, let's say, because I got this question a lot, I'm divorced, which parent do I include on the FAFSA? Just keep in mind that it's going to be whichever parent the student has lived with the most within the past 12 consecutive months. If that situation doesn't work, it's whichever parent provided more than 50% of the financial need for the student within the past consecutive months, okay? So just keep that in mind. No one else has to provide legal guardians. Unfortunately, they do not count. So just, and if you have any questions about that, just please let me know. Information needed for the FAFSA. Fortunately, no need to copy this down. That green postcard that I gave you all, it literally has all of this information on there. The most important thing that I want to tell you all, because we all think that we know our Social Security numbers, but you will be surprised how many of us kind of make, little minor mistakes, but it can be a big issue in the end. So if you could prepare all of these documents, like the Social Security number, like the actual blue card, or if you have like some sort of alien registration number or a USCIS number, your W-2s, tax returns, bank statements, anything of that nature, just please bring everything that's on that green postcard so that we can have everything go smoothly and complete, the application for FAFSA. Okay, so the FSA ID, how many of us have created an FSA ID? By the show of hands. Okay, so sometimes parents will create an FSA ID for an older student, one of their older kids, and maybe forget. Don't stress yourself out too much. If you're having problems logging in, you've been locked out, just let me know. That's what I'm here for. But just remember that the FSA ID is the way for the student as well as the parent to sign the FAFSA application. So you do need a FSA ID for the student and then one for the parent. The website for this is fsaid.gov. And just keep in mind, this is also on that handy dandy green postcard. So if you don't keep anything else, keep the green postcard and keep my business card. Okay, so the IRS data retrieval tool. So on the FAFSA application, you will be able to link your taxes to the FAFSA application, which is wonderful. Many times it can help to prevent verification, but it just depends on the school. Some schools do 100% verification, and I'm going to talk about that a little bit more later in the presentation. But if you can, please link your taxes to the FAFSA application. Bless you. And also, just keep in mind that in order to link, it's going to ask you for information that was on your IRS return. So that's why it's important to have that with you. Okay, so expected family contribution, which we talked about before. When you all are done completing your FAFSA application, it'll be in blue letters, bold, it'll say EFC, and basically that number is telling you what the federal government believes that you can afford to pay towards your child's education. Just keep in mind that does not mean that you will necessarily be paying that amount. Sometimes it could be less, sometimes it could be more. It all depends on what you're receiving from the institution. If your student apply for any private scholarships or grants, what they're receiving from that. As well as whatever you're getting from the federal government, the state government, and as far as like government loans. So that number, it'll just tell you that number when you're done completing the FAFSA. Okay, verification, we talked about this a little bit. So just keep in mind that verification is basically the institution's way to make sure that everything that you put on your FAFSA application was accurate. So they may ask for tax returns. That's why if you can make some little FAFSA file or something like that, that would be great. They may ask for W-2s or anything of that nature. So don't be too freaked out about this. If you have any questions, again, that's why I'm here. But like I said before, do not provide them with anything that they did not ask you for, just because it can make the process a little bit longer. And also, if you can, please submit all documents on time when it comes to verification, because usually if you're in verification, you have not received your financial aid award letter. And the sooner that we can receive that financial aid award letter is the sooner that we can start trying to figure out how are we going to pay for this, or if it's a way to cut the cost, things of that nature. So please try to do that as soon as you can. Okay, so how much does college cost? You know, it does depend on which institution you're going to, but just to break down what you'll be paying so we're going to go over tuition and fees first. Just remember, tuition and fees is direct expenses, which means that they're paid directly to the institution. Tuition will never change. Fees, on the other hand, and a lot of schools will not tell you this, but that could possibly change. Schools have mandatory fees, and then they have non-mandatory fees. They will usually never reach out to you and tell you what is non-mandatory. So it is up to you to take advantage of that and ask them, hey, am I being charged any non-mandatory fees? The most popular one is definitely health insurance. Schools will usually charge you for health insurance. They will not ask if you already have it. So if you are able to opt out or waive your health insurance, please do so, because it will definitely save you a lot of money. Room and board. That can either be direct or indirect. Direct if the student lives on campus, indirect if they do not. It's up to you to figure out which one is more, cost efficient. Transportation, books and supplies, and miscellaneous fees. These are all indirect expenses as well. They are not paid to the institution. Just keep in mind for books and supplies, when I was an undergrad, I maybe paid for 4 books, but I went to school within the state of Illinois. Illinois has something called iShare, where basically the community colleges and some of the universities share like this online library database, where you're able to, as a student, rent the book for the quarter or semester, It depends on however long that class is for completely free. And the best thing about it is they actually send the book to your school's library, so you don't have to go too far. And then you just return it when you're done. So that was a wonderful way to pay for books and supplies. Also for students, start taking advantage and living on a budget if you can. You do deserve to have a personal life because you're still humans. But just keep in mind they have $5 movie Tuesdays. Or if you want to go, get your nails done, you can always do that at like a beauty school. So just figure out ways to, cut the costs. And if you need help with that, that's why I'm here. Okay. So just keep in mind all those things that I stated before: tuition and fees, books and supplies, room and board. All of that is considered within the cost of attendance. Usually, most of you will receive some type of award letter where it will say, this is the cost of attendance and this is how much you're getting from FAFSA. But that isn't, just keep in mind that you don't necessarily have to pay that amount. That's just what they have estimated based on the students that have come to their institution. So it is a way to cut costs there. Remember, expected family contribution is going to be that number that you received after you have submitted your FAFSA application successfully. Remember, that number is what the federal government has decided that you can afford to pay. It doesn't necessarily mean that you will be paying that amount. And then the financial need is what we all really care about. That's what you usually have to pay or figure out how are we going to pay this amount. So 3 examples. I would say college A would be a community college, so we're going to use Oakton, since it's close. College B is going to be more of a public institution, so I believe the closest one would most likely be Northeastern Illinois University. And College C is going to be a private school, so we can use Loyola or DePaul or anything. So just keep in mind the cost of attendance will fluctuate, depends on which school you plan to attend. Your expected family contribution will never change, okay? Because that is based off of your finances, and the government is deciding that's what you may have to pay, or that's how much you can afford to pay, rather. And then the financial need is going to be the leftover amount. Also, for some of us who want to go to schools where it is costly, do not eliminate that. Still apply for that school, because you never know what type of institutional aid you may receive, okay? So don't let the cost of the school deter you. Still apply for schools so that you can kind of compare those award letters, and I'll help you with that. Just because as students, you all are the ones who have to live there for the next 4 years or however many years, so it's best that you're comfortable and also that your parents' pockets are comfortable. So we're going to try to do both of those. Okay, so financial aid award letters, just remember that's more so just going to be a bill from the school. It'll tell you the cost of attendance. It'll tell you everything that you're getting from the state, from the federal government, any federal loans, any institutional aid. And again, if you need help reading through those award letters or understanding them, I believe that we will have an event where we do that. But also, if you wanted to meet one-on-one with me, we can definitely do that as well. Okay, so the financial aid process, just remember that the FAFSA application opens October 1st at midnight. The first thing to do will be to complete the FAFSA application. At that point, you will receive your student aid report. It'll tell you your EFC, or expected family contribution. After that, usually is when college applications are due. I know for priority, it's usually around November 1st, November 15th, or December 1st. So if you could try to do the FAFSA first, the college application second, then you will maybe, depending on the school or your situation, you may have to go through verification. So send those documents in, because the sooner that you get all of that out of the way, the sooner you will receive your award letter, which is what we want, so that we can try to figure out those costs, okay? At that point, you'll review the different award letters from the different schools that you received, and you will respond to one school as a student on which school you actually plan to attend. but make sure that you complete all pending processes. I know sometimes for seniors, you all think that the college application, you're done, but it's so much more after, like immunization records, housing, applying for housing. So make sure that you're just on top of those things. And then you do have to renew your FAFSA every year that you're in school. So these are some of the trusted sites. The first is studentportal.isic.org. Just keep in mind for this site specifically, this is going to be where you go to look for some of the information on the military programs or some of the teacher programs that we have here. But like I talked to you all about before, if you are a military person, please email me or come and see me so that I can give you the closest point of contact who can actually help you through the entire process. Studentaid.gov is going to be for both students and parents. You want to go on there to learn more about loans, or you can just talk to me. Or if you wanted to review some of the different repayment options offered through the federal government, that is where you go. I believe the last time I checked, they had 6 different repayment options. And then for FAFSA.gov is where you're going to go to complete the FAFSA application. So if for any reason that you cannot contact me, which I doubt that, you can text this number, which is the 847-243-6470 number. That is going to be the closest rep to this area code here. So I'm going to leave this up for just a second so you can take any pictures or anything, but also keep in mind that the school is going to send you this information via email, so don't stress too much about it.
So we're going to take questions now?
I'm sorry.
Questions now? Okay.
Yeah, absolutely.
Ms. Cooper and I have a mic, so whoever.
Hi, that's me. Anybody over here?
Hi, I have a question. How does the 529 plan or any other college savings plan affect your EFC?
Okay. So the 529 plan, it is going to be considered an asset. You will report it on the FAFSA application under the net worth of investments. The most important thing for parents to know is that with the 529 plan, they are going to look at the total amount of any 529 plan that you have, even if it isn't for the specific student who is entering school during that time. Does that answer your question? So it does affect because they're considering it an asset. And, you know, for EFC specifically, they're considering like the assets, income, how many students within the household actually are in college, how many people live within the household. So, yes, it does affect your EFC. Yes.
Regarding the bank statements and investment statements, what time period are they looking at? Or?
So with the FAFSA application specifically, everything is pretty much as of today. They do understand that, of course, with like bank account balances, it does fluctuate, you know, but everything is just as of that day.
Can you explain the connection between the CSS form and the FAFSA form?
Okay, so that's a really good question. So depending on the school, they may ask you to complete a CSS profile, which I actually could connect you to the CSS experts because I'm more so FAFSA. But just keep in mind that the CSS profile does include certain things and consider certain things that the FAFSA doesn't. For instance, CSS looks at the equity in your home. They look at the value of your car. Let's say that the parents are divorced. They would be looking at the income for both parents versus the FAFSA. It only matters who the students live with. They don't look at anything as far as your home, only like investment properties. And as far as the FAFSA, they don't look at anything that has something to do with retirement. But CSS, on the other hand, does. But if you wanted to talk to someone to go more in detail with you, because I'm not a CSS expert, I can definitely connect you with someone. And I will send this to, the staff here so they can include it in the email packet that they send you all. Yes.
Yes, we have a student already in FAFSA, another one about to join. Is that based on the adult or each student separate? How does that kind of work?
I'm so sorry. I had a difficulty.
Multiple students in FAFSA. Do we have to put this information in twice? Is it based on the student or is it based on our social security number or an ID?
Okay, so are you saying that you have multiple kids who will be completing the FAFSA application?
We have one that we just finished and we will be having another one shortly.
Yes.
We hope.
So it will be separate applications, of course, but they will be asking you to enter your information on both applications. Does that answer?
Double the work. Okay.
Okay.
Yes, thank you. As following up to the MS 529 account, is there an area where you can designate whether your student plans on doing a graduate program such that they take that into consideration for the EFC?
So as far as if your student plans to do a graduate program later on, they will not consider that. The only thing that they're considering is the financial information and assets to be able to determine what you all could afford to pay for your students' education that year.
Hi. I have a question not so much about FAFSA, but about the college side. Do you have a sense of how colleges change their offers based on early decision as opposed to regular decision? What are the financial implications there?
Yes, so usually, in many cases, the college will offer, some type of institutional aid to students who apply as early decision. But for parents, just to ease your mind, just keep in mind that every student that applies to that school that they offer some type of institutional scholarship to, they don't necessarily go to that school all the time. So that's why it's always important when you have received your financial aid award letter to ask the school, like, if you're in a situation where my student really wants to go here and I can't afford it, hey, is there anything that you can do? Is there any type of, scholarship that they could apply for? Because, the deadline may have passed, but they may have offered it to a student who said, hey, I don't want to go here. I want to go somewhere else. But usually in the case of early decision, those students they do have like some type of priority to them. Like, if you come here, we'll offer you this type of institutional aid.
Okay, so the FAFSA application, we do an FSA, correct?
So
For the parent?
Yes, so for the FAFSA application, the parent and the student has to complete a FSA ID, and
Okay.
basically what that is your signature on the FAFSA application.
So, complex question. I have a daughter. I was a single mother. I have that all filled out with her. She's a senior now. Now, her brother is a freshman in high school, and her father's passed. So, I had a new marriage with taxes, the FSA, that still applies to my son?
So that the FSA ID is just like a login, like
Okay.
a signature. So you can definitely still use that for your freshman son when he is actually a senior.
Okay.
Yeah. Does that answer your question? And as far as like, let's say it was a situation, because it may be a few people who are in similar situations where you changed like your marital status or like widowed, or like there was a huge change in financial information, you would still complete the FAFSA and enter that IRS tax return information, but that would be your time to talk to the financial aid office once the student has decided that they're going to that school and explain some of the events that occurred, just in case it's a situation where it's like you were making more money and, So, yeah, and if you need help with that, contacting the financial aid office, that's why I'm here. Yeah. And talk to me after, too, if you still, yeah, absolutely. Okay.
Thank you. Can you just give us an idea of how the loans and the financial aid increases like on an annual basis? For example, if we have freshmen or sophomores, what can we expect those numbers to be?
Oh, okay. Yeah, so you know what? I'm going to just go back to that slide for you. Sorry. Okay, so when it comes to the FAFSA application, each year that the student is in school, as long as they're not they're not on academic probation, pretty much, their loan amount will increase. It's usually by $1,000. So the freshman year, if they're a dependent student, they'll get the $5,500, then $6,500, then $7,500. The only time that they will increase the student loan amount to the independent student rate is if they ask the parent to complete a Parent Plus loan and the parent was denied, which means the parent can't afford it, so we have to figure out another way for you to be able to afford school.
What about the scholarships, like the Pell or the MAP? Do those increase annually?
The MAP and the grant, so the MAP and the Pell Grant, those are just grants. Those are need-based. They're just looking at the financial income for that, in that household. As you all know, depending on your job, your financial income could fluctuate. So it just depends on that. But just remember with the MAP and the Pell, they do have a cap on it. So for Pell specifically, it's only up to $61.95, and MAP is only up to $5,340.
Was that the same last year, or does it increase the annual?
So last year, the Pell Grant was $6,095, so that increased by $100. And then last year, the MAP Grant was $4,869. Yeah, so it has increased.
I have a question.
Yeah.
Hi. You said when you do the FAFSA, you have to put in the colleges that you're interested in. What if our son decides in the middle of October, after I put it in, that he wants to pick another college? Does that matter, or?
If you put the application in after October, is that what you said?
Well, if I put my FAFSA in and he all of a sudden decides that, oh no, wait, I want to go to Lawrence too, can Lawrence get this information, or do I have to do something? Because you said you have to list the colleges you're interested in the FAFSA. What if all of a sudden he's got another one?
Yeah, so the FAFSA application, I'm sorry, I'm having a difficult time here, but the FAFSA application will allow you to place 10 different schools in the application. So for any reason, if they don't want to attend one school, they can definitely attend a different one.
Can they add? I think her question is, can they add an additional school? Yes. Later.
Oh, to the FAFSA application. Yes, I'm so sorry that I didn't hear you. Yes, you absolutely can. It will allow you to add 10, but let's say the student is like, I don't like either of those schools. Let that application process first and then go back in. It usually takes about maybe 3 days or less. Go back in and just take one out or take a few out and add the different schools. Sorry about that.
I have a question for FAFSA application. If we choose some university like Pure University, how do we get the code number we have to provide on the FAFSA? Like school, college code number or anything? How could they get to know that which university we are looking for? Suppose I just select DePaul. So how do I know the code number for DePaul to put it in?
Okay, so that's a good question. So once you add the schools to your FAFSA and you process, FAFSA will actually send something to that institution. So if for any reason you had to go back in and delete it, it's not a problem because that institution already has your FAFSA application on their file. Okay. I'll just try to, okay.
Yeah, I'm curious about the needing to apply as soon as possible after October 1st. It seems like your EFC wouldn't change if you apply October 20th or whatever, right? So what exactly, is it just that the loans and grants that you might get to cover that, that the distribution would change and you'd end up having to pay more out of pocket? What?
Yeah, so the EFC, you are correct, would not change, but that's more so for the grants because they are first come, first serve as well as need-based. It's also important just because if you're able to finish the FAFSA and your student is able to apply for school, the sooner you do that, the sooner you'll receive that award letter. Well, first the acceptance letter and then the award letter, which is what we really care about because we're trying to figure out how we're going to pay for school. So that's usually why.
Quick question. You said this is going to be sent out via email?
Yes, absolutely. Ms. Cooper, Ms. Airy,
like after
Ms. Vasquez, yes, they're going to send out all of this to parents. So
could you ask them to also include the PowerPoint from the college application night? Because
I sure will, and if someone can
Hey, Ms. Cooper here. The PowerPoint, all this information is going to be made available online. The PowerPoint that you're speaking of is actually up right now. It's on the College and Career Services page of the website, and it's under the resource section. That's where you'll find all this information.
Yes. And then I think, sorry.
I have one quick question. If your financial situation changed since you filed your taxes, is there any place on the FAFSA to just indicate that?
So unfortunately, it's not a place on the FAFSA to indicate that, but that's when we'll be in contact with the financial aid office. So once, and not to every school that your student has applied to, but the school that they plan to attend, and we will contact them and say, hey, our financial information changed. They will usually request some type of documentation from you just to prove, or like some type of letter to prove that it has changed. But if you need help with that process, I'm here for that. Yeah.
I have a question, please. When you speak of the reward letter, is that, do they just give you the information for the first year of college, or does it tell you what you would pay for the 4 years? It's just the first year?
Yeah, it is just the first year.
So you don't know how much you'll be getting. You have to fill out the FAFSA every year, so you don't know if you'll get the same amount or less or more for subsequent years?
But to just put you at ease a little bit, they will give you an award letter every year that your student is in school. Now, they might not necessarily mail it, but it will be on the student's portal. But for the first year, that will only be for that year. And the reason why is because with the financial aid award letter, remember that it includes information from the FAFSA. Your financial information might change every year, so they can't, honestly give you an award letter for all 4 just because of that.
My understanding is that there's a wide variety of grants and, I don't know, if you know how to climb stairs, you can get there might be a scholarship or a grant out there for you. Is there a centralized website where you can go and see that myriad of opportunity?
Of different grants. So honestly, Ms. Cooper is going to be like the definite contact person when it comes to scholarships and grants. But one thing that we really push here at ETHS is Going Mary, which is a really good scholarship site, just because when you can use one application for several different scholarships versus it's called Going Mary, so G-O-I-N-G, Going, and then Mary, which is M-E-R-R-Y, like Merry Christmas. So basically, you can use one application for several different scholarships. But if your student is looking for scholarships and things of that nature, I would definitely get in contact with Ms. Cooper, or they can come and see me.
We also list all of our scholarships on Naviance. So any scholarship information that is sent to us at ETHS, Ms. Cooper uploads them to Naviance. And then ETHS scholarships open up February 12th. Seniors will be meeting with their counselors then to talk about how to apply to scholarships here.
Yeah, and just one more thing to add, because you all live in Evanston, or most of you, is really a great thing because they have a lot of Evanston scholarships where the applicants can only be Evanston students. So the applicant pools are much smaller than, looking anywhere else. So if you can apply for those Evanston scholarships first or prioritize those, I would definitely do that because Evanston has a lot to offer. Mm-hmm.
Okay, you flagged my curiosity with the insurance thing because we had her wisdom teeth taken out, and I didn't know that they could have put her into a health insurance because they weren't covering things on our insurance. I didn't realize she had a secondary insurance. Is there a way to make sure it's opted out?
Oh, as far as the institution goes?
Yeah.
Yes, absolutely.
I didn't even realize they did that.
Yeah, if you need help with that, I can help you.
Okay.
But usually, if you just go to a school's website, it doesn't even matter which school it is, and say, just in a search engine, opt out of health insurance or waive health insurance, it'll literally have like some type of link, and you can go through the entire process. But again, if you need help with something like that, Yeah, exactly. They will never tell you that you can opt out of health insurance usually. Yeah. Bless you.
Hi. What if your student is applying to more than 10 colleges? What if your student is applying to more than 10 colleges?
If they're applying for more than 10 colleges, that's fine. It's just when they submit the FAFSA application that first time, it'll only allow them to put in 10 schools. So definitely go back in after it has processed, and it'll send you an email saying like, hey, your FAFSA was processed successfully, and add the rest of those schools because you want to make sure that every single school has their FAFSA on file. Mm-hmm. Because that's how they're going to create that award letter. So no, as far as the FAFSA application, their only concern is what can the parents pay or what can the students pay, in a sense, so that we don't have to pay it. So just keep that in mind. They're not really concerned more so of like which school you're applying to or to enter like the most expensive school. It's just up to you to enter any school that you believe the student might apply to or will apply to, just so that you make sure that they have your FAFSA, because every school is going to ask for that FAFSA application usually before they actually disperse a financial aid award letter.
Here we come.
Can you pull up the EFC COA slide with the different colleges?
Yes.
So,
wait, give me one second. Let me just make sure I'm.
Yeah.
What is it? This one?
Right. So, if the expected family contribution, say for college B, is $3,000, and then the financial need is $17,000, all of the grants and all of the stuff that the aid you were talking about, it can apply to both the $3,000 and the $17,000, right? Or are you always going to pay? You're like the $3,000. You're like in for $3,000.
Yeah. So just remember, with the expected family contribution, that's just how much the federal government has decided that you can afford to pay. It doesn't mean that you'll be paying that, because, for instance, if your student was to receive a full ride, this wouldn't matter because their school will be paid for. Also, just keep in mind with these numbers, this does not include any institutional aid. It doesn't include any state aid. It doesn't include any federal aid. The only thing that's on this, specific slide is the cost of attendance for the school, what the federal government decided that you can afford to pay. Doesn't mean you'll necessarily be paying that, and then what's left over.
You mentioned a list of education-specific scholarships.
Yes.
Is that like a piece of paper you have, or is that a link where I'm going to go check because my kid wants to be a teacher?
Oh, so if your student wants to, let me just pull it up. But if your student wants to become a teacher, that's totally fine. They will apply for these scholarships or waivers on the isac.org site. But if they need help with that, they could contact me. But please see me after this presentation, because I literally have, for teachers specifically, a sheet that compares all of the teacher scholarships, waivers, grants, so that they don't have to look through so many different sites.
So you've got that, so I'll find you.
I got that. I got it with me.
Also, shameless plug, as the scholarship coordinator for the ETHS scholarships, we have 4 ETHS senior scholarships that are strictly for education students, and there are a bunch of scholarships that are geared towards students who are interested in education. So
Yes.
there's a lot of information out.
Take advantage of those. Yes.
So I was a little eager and started the process, but ended up realizing, thanks to friends at work, that I was working on the 2019-2020 as opposed to 2020-21 application. So I ended up with an FSA ID, but never completed the form, of course, because...
Yeah.
So will I still be able to use that FSA ID?
Yeah,
Cool,
absolutely.
thank you.
Yeah, and you'll be able to use it every year that the student is in school. So, yes.
So forgive me for this, but it seems a little bit like the little bit we've been able to squirrel away in a 529 was maybe not the smartest thing to do.
Wait, I'm sorry. The squirrel, what was that?
Yeah, I'm talking about squirrels. The little bit that we've been able to put away in a 529 is maybe not the smartest thing we've done.
No, I wouldn't say that,
Okay.
because usually parents never regret saving, for college, because you'll definitely, you'll need it. Or you may not. It depends on what the student is receiving. But just keep in mind when it comes to assets, because I know that, I've been talking about how it's included and the expected. It's basically included when they're trying to figure out what your EFC is. But also keep in mind, parents, that they are considering more than just that, okay? They're considering how many people live within the household, how many of those people are college students. Also, you never know what you may receive from the school side as far as institutional aid. So it doesn't hurt you to have a 529 plan because you've saved, and congratulations to that. But I will be here.
It's not a lot, don't worry.
Okay.
Serena, can you talk about ETHS helps financial the day in spring when we receive the financial aid letter to compare? Can you explain how that may benefit families when they're looking at college A, B, and C?
Yes. So the reason that it's important and why I've been pushing to, try to, have some type of order to it, because I don't know if it's any seniors left. It'll be a lot on your plate. It's the FAFSA, college applications, scholarships. I don't know if they work a job. They're in school, of course, so it's a lot. But the sooner that you do the FAFSA, the college application, get that acceptance letter, the sooner that you can receive that award letter. And it's so important that we get these as soon as possible so that we can start comparing what the costs are. Just keep in mind, some schools will really try to wow you because they'll offer you a $17,000 scholarship. But if tuition is $62,000 and you're not getting a lot from everything else, it may be best for you to attend a different school. So that's why it's important that we receive those award letters so that we can kind of compare what the costs are and get the chance to waive health insurance or opt out of non-mandatory fees or change the residence hall to decrease costs by $2,000 or do whatever we have to do. So if you can do that, that will be excellent. Did I answer?
Yeah, no, just that we offer that opportunity for our families here at ETHS in the spring. So we don't always have that many families taking up on the offer of the wonderful, I'm the department chair for student services, so our College and Career Center staff offer amazing services. We don't always have the family turnout. The one coming up is on October 3rd, where we are going to help families complete the FAFSA. So that's another opportunity. But then in the spring also, they have appointments, so you can come and bring all your financial award letters and compare.
Yes. So please take advantage. This is a long process for you as a parent or you as a student, but the help is here, you know. So use us. Well, me specifically, I'm here to serve you. So please
Also,
do that.
Just to reiterate, October 3rd is not only the day for FAFSA completion, but that's also parent-teacher conferences. So senior parents, you probably will already be here. So, you know, we'll be there in the hub.
Yes. 1 to 9.
1 to 9.
Yep. 1 to 9. We will be here all day.
Hi, everybody. I'm Ms. Vasquez. Sorry, I'm the post-secondary counselor. This is very loud. All senior families and students will be getting an email to 8:30 tonight, so you can pick your preferred time, and it's actually 1:30 is the first time slot, and we have a limited amount of space per time slot. So just wanted to let you know. So seniors, look out for that email to make your appointment for October 3rd, FAFSA Completion Assistance Day.
Yep.